guys, welcome back to The Ratchet Christian. My name is Esmao and I am The Ratchet Christian. So I want to start a new series called Can We Talk About It? Can we talk about it? There's just some things that I think about that I'm like, I should talk about this. And it may not always be necessarily related to the Bible or Jesus or anything like that, but I'm sure I'll find some way to tie it back in. But today what I wanted to talk about is can we talk about how Africans treat African Americans? I want to talk about how African people treat Black people, because one thing about me is I feel like I'm the true epitome definition of an African American. I am fully African. Both my parents are from Guinea. I was born in Sierra Leone, lived there until I was 7. I am an African girl. Leave it swim me for you, too late for you. I gotta stand up. Wait, the song. But I was raised in a foster family with a Black American family. So although I'm African, I was raised by a Black woman and her 2 daughters who are still my sisters. She's still my mom. And so I grew up being raised as a Black woman. Yeah, it's all good. So I'm African, but I was raised by Black people. So I have these 2 families, that are now become one. But I have the experience of being able to go to my African family's house and eating okra and rice, and going to my Aunt Beverly's house and she's frying fish and we're having macaroni and cheese for dinner. I have a little bit of both all mixed in there, and maybe that's why I'm so confused. No, I'm kidding. Not confused, but it's I grew up feeling where do I really belong? When I was with my African friends and my African family, I wasn't quite African enough. I was so Americanized that it's kind of I'd try to speak the language, and my Creole no be fine. I just wish that I could do and know more things about my culture, and that's why I started to learn how to cook my food. If you watch my Instagram stories, I cook African food because I had my mom and my sister teach me, and then with my Black American family, I'm just listen, my mom taught me how to make macaroni and cheese, which I make bomb, by the way, and I can say that because I do make good macaroni and cheese. And just growing up within that culture, I just got to see how the 2 opposing sides treat each other, and I never understood that because I'm they're us and we're them, we're the same. Black Americans are just stolen Africans. We're the same people. But I would hear some conversations sometimes the way that African people talked about Black American people, and it's just wait. Or even African Americans people, how they used to talk about Africans. It's not the same anymore, but growing up African, you got all the jokes, the African booty scratcher, you live in a hut, this and this and that. Granted, I don't think it's that way anymore because being African is very on trend. We're very exotic. Our music, Afro beats, all that things now is a part of the culture. And I just think the culture has just elevated to a point now where it's it's a fashion statement, you know what I mean? And not only that, African Americans have elevated to the point now where we're woke, where we know that, embracing African culture is better than making fun of it, you know what I mean? And I thought about this because last week I went to my mechanic and I was just talking to him. He's a really, really nice guy. We were talking about his vacation that he had gone on a couple years ago, and he was telling me about how he had this really, really amazing waiter, the best waiter he's ever had. And he was talking about how this waiter was Nigerian, and the guy was telling him about how the Nigerian waiter was telling this Hispanic guy about how he would never let his daughters date Black American men. His daughters can date white, African, whatever. This African man does not want his daughter dating Black men. And believe it or not, that's kind of, I don't want to say a common sentiment, but I've heard that before, where within African communities, they don't want to date Black people, don't want their children dating Black people, because some Africans, when they come to America, they kind of adopt that mindset that other cultures and mainly some white people have about African American people, thinking that, they be lazy, that they're loud, they're ghetto. And there's even a term sometimes that I heard them refer to African Americans as akata, which somebody told me means monkey. I'm not sure, don't quote me on that, could be wrong, but there's a derogatory term that some Africans even have for Black Americans. And I never understood that, you know. And when things happen in the African American community, when it comes to racial injustice, police brutality, even recently with all the protests that went on in the world against George Floyd's murder, I was like, you saw protests in New Zealand, you saw a protest in freaking Germany, all over the world. And I was like, where are the protests in Liberia? Where are the Black Lives Matter protests in Sierra Leone? Where's the Black Lives Matter protests in Guinea? Where is Africa? These are your people that are here. They're being mistreated and killed basically in a genocide fashion. Where are we when it comes to standing up for African Americans? You know what I mean? And I could be wrong. The protest could have happened and I just didn't see it. But I just would have wanted a bigger reaction from the African community when things happen to Black Americans. Because one thing that Black people don't realize is that, oh, Black people make Africans look bad because we come here, we work hard, we start from scratch. Meanwhile, they're here and they're lazy and they're not doing anything. And it's like, that's not true. That's not necessarily true. And we need to join their fight, because if I get pulled over, it doesn't matter if my name is Keisha or Asmau. I just look Black. They're not going to take the time to be like, oh, she's African, let's not kill her at this traffic stop. You know what I mean? So I'm just like, we all need to come together and work together to fight against racial injustice. And I'm mostly doing this video to call out African people to be like, hey, like, let's really think about this. You know what I mean? And it's like me being raised by a Black woman. Although I'm African, I was raised in the Black culture. You know, I basically identify as a Black woman, and their struggles are my struggles, and I care about the things that happen in both of my communities. You know what I mean? Even as far as to go, like my degree is in sociology and anthropology, so studying the racial injustice in America and having these conversations and trying to have my African friends and family understand that it's not that Black people's situation here and how bad some things are for them in America. Some Africans seem to think, oh, it's their fault. And it's like, do you not realize that it was 400 years of slavery and there continues to be systemic oppression against them, intentionally keeping Black people from prospering, intentionally breaking up Black homes so that they can't have a healthy and complete like family structure? Like the system in the US is rigged against African Americans. And just because you African come here and you're able to go to school and build a family and you do it, does not mean that it's as easy for somebody who's a Black American who grew up in America. You know, when you're coming from Africa, we're coming with, you know, values and traditions that we're carrying over, you know, that may make our mindset easier to be able to succeed here because we didn't grow up in this oppressive system. You know what I mean? But for the people who have, it's tough. It's tough. So I just wanted to talk about that because I'm like, let's stop doing that. Like, let's stop pretending like we're not the same people. Let's stop talking bad about, as Africans, let's stop talking bad about Black Americans like they're not us. You know, and even me, I have to check myself sometimes because I'm like, when I hear artists doing Afro beats, I'm just like, why are they doing Afro beats? Like, I don't want them messing with African music, you know. Or I see American girls wearing waist beads and I'm like, what does she have on waist beads for? Like, you're not even African. Or seeing somebody in like our traditional African, like, you know, clothing, it just kind of makes me kind of like for a second like, why do you have that on? You're not African. But there's so many people who want to embrace the African culture, and even sometimes I can be resistant to it because I'm like, no, they're gonna mess it up. They don't know the meaning of it. But some people do, you know, some people do. And there's just a yearning here for the African Americans who are here to know what tribe that they're from, to, you know, want to get to know their ancestry, to want to get to know the food, to want to listen to the music. And we should embrace that instead of rejecting them. As Africans, we need to embrace that. You know what I mean? And I was watching TV and I heard somebody talking about, a Black American talk about when they went home to Africa, they thought they were gonna get like this big like reception, this warm welcome. But when they got to Africa, people were looking at them like, okay, and you know what I mean? And I've been in Africa and seen how Africans treat white people. It's like God just descended, you know what I mean? Like, oh, move over, give them their seat, this and this and that. And it's like, colonization was too long ago for us to still have these old, rusted mindsets. When our people come home, we need to love on them. We need to embrace them. If you're African and you have African American friends, you need to let them try our food. You need to, if you can, take them back home with you because it's like they need that. And some of them want that, you know. And so as Africans, let's embrace African Americans. And I haven't had any choice, you know. And that's not to say that, yeah, I mean, I was raised by a Black woman, you know. It wasn't optional for me to embrace the African American culture, because that is my culture. You know what I mean? And I'm so blessed to now have my two families together as one, you know, where my American sisters will go to my sister's house and, you know, eat African food. My African sister will go to my American sister's house and they'll eat American food, hang out with each other. Like, it's just beautiful, and it literally is the epitome of being African American, and I want that for everybody. You know what I mean? So let's stop acting like we're the other or they're the other, and that we as Africans are better than them, because we're not. We're the same people, and their fight is our fight, and we need to be more outspoken when it comes to racial injustice in America, because it affects us too. It affects us too. You, Mohammed, you, Asmao, you, just because you're African and you have these different names does not mean that you're not going to get pulled over and be treated the same as Tisha, Keisha, and Trayvon. You know what I mean? So, yeah. And I love black men. I don't know, that came out of nowhere. Like, I love black men, but my parents don't have that same sentiment of, oh, we don't want you marrying this person and that person. I've only dated one African guy my whole life. The man almost ruined my life too. Ooh, African men, listen, ladies, just don't do it. I've mostly dated black men, but that's not common for some African girls. You know, most African girls don't date black men. Crazy, right? I do. I love black men. I like African men too. Okay. But I'm not here talking about men. Done. Okay. Next topic. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about that. And I want to hear your thoughts on this. So comment, subscribe, like this message, share this message, and let's talk about it and move forward and do better and stop talking bad about black people to people of other races, because it's silly and it looks ridiculous. Okay? Alright guys, please make sure to subscribe to my channel if you're not already subscribed. Like, share, comment, do all the things, and I'll see you next week. Bye!